Dashiell from the Earth Station Trek podcast, and I have not seen a lot of the original series. I've seen bits and pieces of it, and some of the bits and pieces I have seen, I have absolutely no memory of until I watch the episode again, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. But with Strange New Worlds coming out, I thought it would be a good idea to watch some of the relevant episodes, and they have Kirk's brother in this first episode of Strange New Worlds, so I thought we'd watch the episode where he sort of appears. Operation Dash Dash Annihilate, which is one of the strangest Star Trek titles I've ever seen. So Operation Annihilate, they are tracking this, what they assume is some kind of disease where people just go crazy and the civilization wipes itself out. And it's been going across along this trail across a certain section of space. And they're predicting where it's supposed to go next. And it's not supposed to get there quite yet based on where it's been previously. But as they're headed there to see what they can do to prevent it from happening there, they have someone that comes out and flies at the sun and says something along the lines of, I'm finally free, as though they were released from whatever had them in the grip of madness right before they burned up in the sun. Turns out Kirk's brother Sam, and he is the only one that calls him Sam. That's from another episode that I recently watched where they referenced it. I don't remember what it was, but in this episode, Sam and his wife and son are on that planet. When Kirk and the landing party beams down, they find his house. His brother's wife is like going crazy trying to block something, and they have to sedate her, and they find Sam and his son laying on the floor. Sam is dead. And it looked like, and I don't know if this is actually what happened, it looked like they got William Shatner and put a mustache on him for the like half a second glimpse they had of Sam. So that was really weird. I didn't get a good enough look at it, and I didn't ask any questions about it later because there was way too much else going on. But they take his sister-in-law and his nephew up on the ship and try and help them. They find these weird pancake aliens that fly around, and they tried killing them, and the phasers were not doing anything. And one latched onto Spock, but they were able to like smack it off eventually. And Spock was succumbing to it. There was a whole thing where Spock was trying to continue in duty, even though this thing had its grip on him. I'm now not remembering what those aliens were trying to do. I remember they were basically like a single brain cell, and they all worked together, and each individual piece was part of a bigger whole. So they found out the sedation wasn't working very well. Kirk's sister-in-law died. They thought the kid was gonna die. Spock was like, well, test what you could do on me. Spock was able to go down there because since he had already been exposed, it was the safest solution, and was able to capture one of the pancakes and bring it back up. I'm pretty sure this is now completely out of order, but they were testing stuff on it and nothing was working. And then they had the idea of something about the sun made it so that they were released from whatever it was. So what does the sun release that we haven't tried? And I don't remember what they said was the ray that they used or the rays that they used, but it worked. it shrunk the pancake to a sad pancake, and then they decided to do it on Spock, but he couldn't wear the protective glasses for some reason that I am not remembering now. So he was going to go blind. But he said he wanted to do it anyway. So he was in there with his eyes closed, and they sprayed him with the rays, and he came out and he's like, "I'm blind, but it's gone." And then almost immediately Bones is like, "Oh, hey, this is actually the reason why it worked. It wasn't the part that made you go blind, so you didn't have to go blind. I figured this out right after you walked out, right after he blinded you." Not in the all the time before when we were studying this. No, in the second after you were blinded, figure this out. So they have saved Spock from the thing, but he's blind, and they save the kid, and they save the planet, and basically kill this other, not exactly life. It's a single life form, but it's individual cells of a life form that are separate. It's really weird, but they get rid of all of that. And then at the end, you learn that Spock has his vision back because Vulcans have a second eyelid. That is why he was not blinded, because Vulcans have a second eyelid. I don't know why he was originally blinded when he came out if Vulcans have a second eyelid, and then later wasn't blind. That doesn't make any sense to me, but they couldn't make Spock blind because that wouldn't work, even though they were at the end of a season. I think it was season 3, actually. I don't know. I like this episode a lot. I really loved the location that they used, because a lot of the times the planets that they go to are like rock or forest planets, and it's clearly a 60s set. The location that they were on, which I understand was a high school, was very futuristic and spacey, and I loved the architecture there and just the way everything was laid out, and them going to a location and being able to shoot these amazing shots that they just can't do in a studio. Regardless of what they have to work with in the studio, they just can't do those shots. I really enjoyed that a lot. The aliens were so strange, and they were literally flying pancakes. I did try that like moved just a little bit in the center section, and sometimes they were a little bit red in the center, but the rest of it was pretty much like a pale brown. I tried looking for the strings, but I couldn't see the strings, actually. I was watching it on Paramount Plus, so they did pretty good with the special effects of moving the aliens and having them all over the place, and just the general idea that there was all these aliens were everywhere in the shadows. The fact that they were a single cell and part of a bigger whole was super weird, and they didn't really answer what the bigger whole really was, or if it was just a bunch of cells that were trying to do whatever they were trying to do. And I wasn't clear on what they were trying to make the people who were going crazy do. They were hilarious looking, and I really hope they never bring them back on Star Trek. So, thinking about Kirk's brother in Strange New Worlds, he wasn't in Starfleet in that original series episode. He was a civilian. So at some point, something has to happen where he leaves Starfleet. I'm kind of interested to see what that is. And I really hope it's not just I found a wife and I'm leaving Starfleet, because that would be kind of lame. I'd like to see more of his kids. Apparently there's more than one now, but there was only one in that original series episode. So I'd like to see that expanded on more. Maybe get some more backstory of him and Kirk growing up and what they kind of did in their childhood. That might be kind of cool, because the only Kirk childhood we've seen is from the 2009s, like in film at least. I know there's books about that. So that would be kind of interesting, flashbacks of the two of them as kids. That might be interesting. I'd rather they not go back to the planet Dinova. There's no reason to. There wasn't like a Starfleet base or presence on that planet initially. They didn't seem to indicate that Sam's wife was a denizen of Dinova. So, I mean, that could be maybe why he stayed, because he fell in love with someone on the planet. But I really hope they don't bring that species in unless they're going back to one of the earlier planets, because this is supposed to be at least roughly ish 10 years before the original series. So, and I think they said it was over a 50-year period that it moved across these various things, or a couple hundred years. So if they do bring that up, I hope it's more of one of the other planets having this issue, and they're not able to solve it, of course. Although I don't see how that would make a good episode, because you're supposed to have a happy, yay, we killed the bad guy ending, and that would not be possible, and I really hope they would not do that. But if they do mention it in passing, sure. So that's my review of Operation Annihilate. Come listen to more of me on the Earth Station Trek podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Is this light blinding you?
No.